I made a pact with God to take me in a major heart attack. I had been suffering physically and emotionally most of my life. The suffering got worse after being struck by a hit-and-run taxi while on my bicycle in September 2003, which led to severe surgeries and illnesses for about 9 years. I knew I was dying. At the start of the 3rd month of weaning myself off of about 15 prescription drugs, I was in strong seizures. I arrived to the hospital on March 6th and had severe seizures after I was taken off of the feeding tube on March 7th. I had my profound NDE at about 2 a.m. on the late night of March 8th and early morning of the 9th, 2012. I recall the seizure coming, and I prepared by wrapping my wrists and ankles with sheets so my body would not flail so much and frighten others. It was okay for me to die. I was tired of being so ill, and I knew I was to die. The seizure began as I finished the last wrapping of my ankles, and I went out. I am in a short void of what appears to be silver gray, very light gray. Then I see that I am standing on a ground that is not earth. I know I have just passed to the other side. I am raptured by the diamond-like ground with what looks to be quartz crystal, white marble, and even something that appears to be see-through glass. On the majority of the ground, there were protruding diamonds that stood tall, smooth, and glistened so much that I did not want to take my eyes away from this ground. Being the very curious person I had always been by nature, I looked up to see what else was there. To my left, I saw a huge crystal blue sky, a beautiful waterfall with some vibrant green grass around its edges. I saw a huge stone gate that led to what I believed was Heaven's Gate. I looked how far this gate extended, and it appeared to morph into forever. I then heard a voice talking to me. It was the sound of a boom of authority and sweet, loving kindness at the same time. It said, "You are here because you have come to me often." I immediately knew all the prayers I had ever prayed had paid off. I had prayed constantly as a child, preteen, and teen of severe physical and emotional abuses, and at times depression. I was in a garden of heaven that was at the foot of the entry gate. My body was with a high fever this particular day, and had been iced in the hospital several times to bring my fever down. In my NDE, I observed the gate to heaven and the narrow, golden, chiseled path that led to it. I saw the different ground under the path, which was not the large diamond-like ground I was standing in. I was picked up by an angel by the back of my body and taken to the waterfall. I was laid at the foot of the waterfall. The most minuscule touch of my left little finger touched the water that was not really water. It looked like gel with the diamond-like colors emanating from it. I felt my fever immediately leave my body. I was then picked up by this angel and brought back to where I had been standing. I saw my maternal grandmother to my right. She was with 3 other relatives that I recognize. To my left is my paternal grandmother and 3 relatives on my father's side who I recognize. My father seemed to want my attention and moved from the maternal side to the paternal side. Nobody was smiling, and I thought, I am going to have a harsh judgment from God. I can take it. I am here in the garden, and I will take any judgment and accept all my sins as a choice I made when I could have done better. Maybe God will understand what I went through while alive. After greeting my relatives and knowing I had serious work to do with being judged, I stood very straight and tall like a soldier. There was a huge orb of the glistening eye of God that was hovering in front of me. It was so large and filled with the light of diamonds and bright white. I said, "I am ready. I know I did bad things. You can judge me now." This huge orb of light, the glistening eye of God, told me to be still. It then told me to turn my head and look to my right. In a millisecond, my head was already looking to the right. I saw several blue, human-like beings with auras of yellow coming out from their heads, shoulders, and bodies. Immediately, I thought that we had all passed away at the same time, and that I was holding up people in the line to be judged. After judgment, I would eventually enter that gate, and I wanted to enter it very much. I turned my head to the glisten of the eye and said, "I am holding up the line." The glisten then poured an indescribable amount of its white diamond, Ike light, onto me. The light was all love, only love, and pure love. It repeated, "Be still, you belong to me." It then told me to turn to my left. I was then immediately looking to my left. I saw the same human-like beings of beautiful blue. There were rows and rows and hundreds of them. I again said to the glistening eye of God, "I am holding up the line." The glistening eye of God said again, "Be still." I was showered with more light from it, and it was all love, pure, pure love. I could feel my body was erect, tall, and not diseased like on Earth. Again, the orb told me to look to my right. Again, I am looking to my right, and I hear form it. Look closer. I then saw for the first time that these are humans I may have known or some I had met. I was then told that I would meet some of these people in the front rows. I saw that they were all made of a sturdy membrane that outlined their entire bodies. The membrane glowed the yellow aura, and the people were all water, like a bathtub filled with pure water. I gave a slight wave of acknowledgement that they were water was registered as I answered in telepathy that I now understood who these water beings were. The orb seemed to be pleased, and then I said again, "You can judge me now. Maybe you did not like when I said that I did bad things. I will change my wording to I did wrong things." This huge, glistening eye of God then showered me with more healing light, said more things to me, and repeated, "Be still." I was not sure why I am not being judged. I wanted so much to walk through that gate ahead of me. I could hear the activity behind that huge gate to heaven. The glistening eye of God then showed me for a minute or two what was beyond the gate to heaven. They were beautiful souls, all talking about us on earth and how to help us. The first thing I witnessed was an oval table of light. These souls were talking about individuals because I heard comments like, "She and he need," "We have this in place for her," and him. The next table was larger, and those souls talked in a way that I understood that they were helping groups. The third table of light had more souls around it, and they also spoke about groups, and I could sense strongly the seriousness at that table. All I wanted was to be able to start my walk into heaven and do whatever job was waiting for me. I had always said to God, "I am so worthless, and if you let me in heaven, I will sweep the floors forever and ever." My attention was brought back to where I was still standing on the diamond-like ground. Even with all that I had been shown, I still say to the glistening eye of God, "I am taking up time, and some want to talk with you." I had heard some of the blue human beings in the right front row tell me that they could not hear what the large orb of light was saying. I look at my right and left, saw my relatives smiling just a little. I believed that I would now be allowed in. At this moment, I am filled with anticipation that the judgment must be good. When I start walking down that little golden path toward the gate to heaven, I heard by telepathy and eye contact when my relatives were saying to me that I am doing fine. Suddenly, the huge white orb of the glistening eye of God dims, and a huge golden yellow orb comes out from its right. I immediately sense that it is the light of Jesus. I am bathed in this golden yellow light and healed and healed and healed even more. I cannot speak. It tells me, "I love you." Its rays touched my body, and I thought I would somehow be transported up those rays. They touched me, and then the golden yellow orb went back into the first huge white orb, the glistening eye of God. A stone ledge then came out of the sky, and a moving art drawing of my life is presented to me. Then another and another. I was having a life review. The drawings, where I was moving in them, were showing me that I was kind to people at different ages of my life. The first moving drawing was me, at about 2 years of age, chasing a butterfly that was teasing me to chase it. I was giggling and having fun playing with this butterfly. I had a pinafore edge dress on, and I was in a park, running with delight of being a little girl. I look at my maternal grandmother and paternal grandmother. They are smiling a little more now, and I feel I have been made as ready as possible. I feel both my grandmothers raise their arms to lightly guide me to start walking down the golden path. Everything goes into a void-like second, though I see silver-gray essence of some sort. I looked up and saw the bright white glistening eye of God once again. I watched it leave, like a balloon slowly drifting away into space. It tells me one last thing I hear audibly, like an everyday human talking, "Continue to do what you have been doing." I believed it meant that I had been doing a good job of being a passed-over soul. It disappears as I follow all its light. I see it as it leaves completely, and I am staring at the ceiling of my hospital room. I immediately felt two opposite human feelings at the very same time. I was fully aware that they were opposites, something I had not experienced before or had forgotten if I had. These feelings were that of complete grief that I had been allowed into the garden of heaven and was in joy. It was a new joy that I had never felt in this lifetime. I knew I had just experienced something phenomenal and extraordinary. The following weeks were filled with my telling everyone I knew what had happened. I have not stopped talking about this NDE. It is my joy, it is my new life, it is my gift and the reason I want to live. Simply to share the story that we are so incredibly made and loved by the all there is love, God.